This is Coffee with Kelly, a dynamic podcast that's dedicated to driving positive change in school safety. I'm your host, Ethan Woodman, Product Marketing Specialist for Crisis Go, and I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Kelly Moore, Senior School Safety Specialist for Crisis Go. Our mission is to empower you with essential knowledge, tools, and inspiration required to foster a safer and more secure school environment. We hope this podcast will be the catalyst for transformation in your schools. Join us as we continue to dive into the world of school safety. Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Not too bad.
Yeah, we just came off a pretty good week at AASA in Tennessee. It was kind of a weird thing for me, honestly. We didn't get a lot of traffic, but the traffic that we got was, I thought, pretty engaged and stuff. I really expected a lot more, especially from the superintendent side of the equation. I really expected more engagement. There was some engagement that was pretty much, thank you for this, I'll give it to my safety director, or we already have something else, we're not changing.
Yeah.
Not even having a safety conversation, like what concerns you. It was strange to me in that sense. It surprised me a little bit. Of course, I'm in the business, right? But it surprised me a little bit. We have these dummy panic buttons so we can show people and we can actually give it to them. There's nothing inside. It's just the shell so that they can get a feel for it. They can take it back and show their people. But it surprised me how many people asked what that was.
Yeah. Yeah, there might have been like one person that was like, oh, is this one of those panic
badges? We actually had a guy, I witnessed this. It was one of the funniest things I've seen at a show. He walked by and grabbed one as he's walking by, never stopped and said, most people will say, hey, can I take this or something like that? He just at full speed walked by, grabbed
swiped it.
I mean, we would give it to him, but
yeah,
he did not want to be talked to. He just wanted his free stuff.
And that's the thing. You get people that walk around, and there was this one guy that I think I actually ended up talking to him. He had 2 tote bags full of swag.
Yeah, hold on. This dude comes back holding the thing. I said, what is this? And we said, it's a dummy panic button. And he goes, oh, I don't want that, and puts it down. So it was just the weirdest sort of interaction that I've had around panic
just
buttons.
grabbing stuff off the table, not even knowing what it is, just to grab it. That's crazy.
There was people at FETC that had like shopping cart size, like totes they were pulling behind them, little wagons. And they
like what you'd see like at a flea market.
Yeah. And I was just like, okay, we want to give you stuff.
Yeah.
As a vendor, we want to give you stuff. And frankly, we don't really care because that's what it's there for. But we do want you to have a conversation with us. And that's, and just, even if it's, hey, how are things going? How's school safety going for you? What keeps you up at night? Those types of things. That's kind of what that is a conversation starter. And we get it, especially the little squeezy plush toys that people go around collecting for their grandkids and their kids, but totally get it. But we would like to talk to you.
Yeah.
All right.
It's interesting how, as you mentioned, you have kind of the higher level roles at AASA that when we talk to them about any of our solutions, like, oh, I'm going to bring this to my safety person, which is technically lower in the org chart. And then FETC, we like get the other way around where we're talking to IT people and it's, hey, let me bring this up to this person.
Right. But it doesn't seem, I mean, don't get me wrong. We had some very good conversations.
Yeah.
And some of them, those good conversations are likely not going to move forward with us, but there's that chance, and that's what it's about. But, if you've had any conversation with most of us at Crisis Go, we want to talk crisis response and management, we want to talk school safety first. And then if we have a solution for you, that's a bonus. But our goal really is to make schools safer, and having those conversations are good. And we want to educate people, and we really want to educate those people who are ultimately responsible. And that's superintendents, school board members, safety directors. Those are the people we want to have those conversations for two reasons. One, we want to educate them because we have a fair amount of experience, right? As a company, we've been in the business for 13 years, 14 years now. And as such, we talk to a lot of prospective customers, a lot of districts. We have a lot of conversations about what concerns them. So we have some interaction fairly frequently with schools about safety. And we want to be that sounding board for people, right? We want to educate them. The second thing is having those conversations educates us. It makes us better vendors, right?
For sure.
And it gives us a different perspective. And having a different perspective, and we don't always succeed, but it's not for lack of trying or lack of effort or experience or something. It really is. Sometimes we just don't communicate it well, but we try to look at the different perspectives, try to keep a balance on things. And sometimes we miss that mark. And before we get too involved in what we're going to talk about, let me say this. We got some pushback from our last podcast. And part of that was, as vendors or as safety people, none of us have sat in the seat of a superintendent, and we don't know everything that's going on in the superintendent world. That being said, we have a lot of experience, and we try to balance and we try to get the right message out there. Like I said, sometimes we miss that message. But I will say this: safety trumps just about everything else.
Yes.
Just about everything else. Again, we've said this many, many times. If you say that you ask a school what's their number one priority, or where do you place school safety, if you want to ask the leading question, where do you place school safety, they'll say right at the top. Okay. But then we've also determined that that's not always the case. And here's how I want to qualify everything that you hear on this podcast and everything that you read from us. It's a perspective. It's a perspective from a national level. And we're trying to get kids and keep kids safe.
I mean, we're even reaching to other countries too. So
that's right. So international. We're just trying to give a perspective and warn people about potential pitfalls that they may or may not have considered. That being said, it's an opinion. It's based upon my 34 years as a law enforcement officer, where a good portion of that was spent in large-scale incident management and crisis response. It comes from, as part of that large-scale incident management and some of my expertise, that I was an incident commander for a mass shooting. And as the incident commander for that, I made a lot of mistakes, a lot of them. And we as an agency made a lot of mistakes. So it's out of that incident that for the last 12 years, I've been trying to learn and correct and do things better. So that's where my experience is coming from. That's where I'm trying to say, look, I've worked in a high liability world. I understand it. I'm not an attorney, but I've worked in a high stress, critical decision making field at some of the highest level during emergencies and response. And I've made mistakes, but I want to learn from my mistakes. And when I explain something and I have an opinion, that's where it's coming from. And it's just an opinion based upon my experience. So there's no intent to single any one person, any one school, any one action. But if we don't start learning from the things that we have done and identify that we have made mistakes, we're not going to evolve.
Yeah, we're not going to grow.
We're not going to grow. And if I say this all the time, and Ethan knows this as well as anyone, is my job is to give you information. My job is to tell you how I believe you can be safer. If you choose not to, that's up to you.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't impact me directly anyway. So it's a piece of information. You can choose to use it or not. If it applies to you or is helpful for you and you want to use it, I'm honored that you do that. If you choose not to, I'm okay with that as well, because even the information you choose not to use can be helpful in the future.
Yeah.
And I'll leave this little monologue with this. There are lots and lots of schools that are doing it correctly. Sometimes we tend to focus on those incidences or things that we find evidence that somebody is not doing it correctly because we're seeing bad results.
Yeah. I mean, that's the only thing that gets published. I mean, it's just our like news culture is the only thing that gets posted is the negative stuff. So it truly is hard to find the things that are positive.
Right.
I will say that.
And as evidence of that is it's a lot better than it used to be.
Yeah.
But it's evident in those circumstances where we averted violence. We don't hear about those. Those aren't publicized. So, but that's a perfect example. And just because it doesn't apply to you now doesn't mean it's not going to apply to you in the future. And again, this is in our industry and many other industries, this is called thought leadership, and it's meant to provoke thought, help you solve your problems, and it's there for that purpose and that purpose only. I can't make your decisions for you, right? But I can give you information so that the decisions you do make are better.
I'd like to add a little bit to that. What I see on some different social media platforms is that lately it seems that like vendors in this space are getting kind of villainized a little bit with that of like, hey, vendors don't deserve to have a seat at the table essentially, and because they're vendors. But like the thing is, like with our company, with a bunch of the people that we integrate with, like there's a lot of experience there. Like you have all your experience. We have many people that work at Crisis Go that were prior teachers. You've got some of our partners who have years and years and years of experience in military. Like there's you can't totally discount that. And so there's you need those different perspectives to get kind of like a well-rounded idea of really how to approach this and solve the problem that we're trying to solve.
And let me just say this. We have two competing philosophies. That one is we're having to butt up against as safety professionals, not as vendors, as safety professionals. We're trying to make your schools safer. Are there different levels of vendors? Sure.
It's a good way to put it.
Right. Sure.
Yeah.
And there are vendors who have almost zero experience in real life experience somehow. But we have on one side, we have many people in education saying, this isn't my job. I'm not the expert. I don't know how to do whatever it is to keep my kids safe. On the other side of that, we have schools saying, you're not a school professional, so you don't understand the perspective, right? But the fact of the matter is we have a gap there.
Yeah.
Right? And that gap is filled with people who have some experience that you don't. It's your responsibility if you choose it, but it is your responsibility to take my experience and apply it how it works from your perspective. Right? So in the beginning, I said I had all this experience, but I neglected to say that I spent a couple years as a school safety director, right? So I have experience dealing in a school setting. So that gives me a little different perspective. I kind of understand. Am I an expert in school methodology and stuff? No. But I do understand the schools that I've dealt with and many of the schools that I have dealt with since. So I have that perspective. If you are not a school safety expert, you have to rely on people who are outside of your school or hire the
Mm.
people who have that experience. And, we see it all the time. So it's not a foreign concept, but we see it where our schools are hiring or creating their own police department,
Mm.
right? But again, this is a whole department within your school system that has never taught classes.
Mm.
So how do you make that work, right? So and and you're right. There are people who have that I deal with on a regular basis that have zero school experience, right? And that
I thought you were
have a
looking at me.
lot to offer, that have lots to offer in the way of keeping your kids safe. Security experts, like you said, it, and you said military, which is implying that military people are kind of on the same level. But what we're actually talking about is we deal with people who are high performing military people, what they call tier one performers. So you're
Mm.
talking about special operations, you're talking about
Yeah.
these people who are in the mix, right?
Yeah.
So they have a different perspective. And I sit back and I talk to them and I learn lots from them.
Oh yeah.
Not because I'm in the same world that they're in or that I will ever be in that world.
Yeah.
But they have a different perspective that can say, all right, here I am ready to go. It is about perspective. And it's that's how we learn is when we talk to people who have a differing opinion or perspective than we have, right? And that is no more important to understand than in today's environment, right?
Yeah.
So
For sure.
with that, let's move on to what we're really going to talk about because we've had an uptick in shootings recently,
Mm.
right?
Yeah. So I'll start with the one that happened further back. So this was, I think, on the 10th of February. From what I've seen, they report this as the the worst like school shooting in Canada
That was
in
in
terms of like death toll. I think
that
biggest
was in like Alberta or somewhere up there, right?
somewhere up there. Yeah, looks to be a maybe an 18-year-old dropout.
Had some mental health issues.
Had some mental health issues and killed their mom and stepbrother at home, and then went on to kill 6 other kids at a school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna
Well,
I'm gonna lump
and
these
then
two together. So tell me about the second one that
so
happened
this
just this past weekend, right?
just this past weekend, another one happened. This seemed to be I mean, obviously you can add to this, but it seemed to me more of like a targeted, like, I'm going to go after these specific people kind of thing. This was an adult, full grown, like 50 something year old adult. I went into, I think it might have been a high school hockey game,
Uh, it was a youth hockey
youth
game.
hockey, could have been middle school, I guess. And then I don't know what transpired, but then they opened fire and
Couple of
killed
family
their
members,
ex-wife and their son, which is nuts.
right?
And then there was definitely some people that were injured as well there. So,
Right.
but
And killed himself, right?
yeah.
There's no need to get into the specifics of the shootings, what went wrong, what went right. There's no need. I don't have all of the information. But here's what I do want to discuss regarding this. And this is that when you look at the potential for violence, again, especially in our current environment, we have to expand our we've been saying this for years, but we have to expand our reach. I'm not sure we've gotten the message out, but we have to expand our reach beyond the schools. And again, we've talked about it, but I think it is illustrated here because the hockey, if I remember correctly, the hockey game, even though it was a school event, was not at a school.
Yeah, I think it was at a separate.
It was at a private rink, right? Yeah, yeah. So, but that's part of the community. The high school, the schools are part of the community. So you have the shooting in Canada, and again, I'm not going to get into the specifics, but it used to be considered a United States thing. This is an American problem, not a international problem. But we've seen more and more of that. But the reality is borders mean nothing when you're talking about mental illness and a desire to kill somebody, right? It's not, oh, we're a better country than they are. We have better policies than they are. People, if they're intent on acting violently towards somebody for some reason, and I will say this, the pathway to violence has no nationality, no ethnicity.
Yeah, it's not part of the equation.
So it applies everywhere and in all of these circumstances. The problem is we're still trying to understand how to identify it before violence takes place, right? And so we have to do this as a community, and we have to look at school safety as a community safety issue, not just the school safety issue. And we have to look at community safety as a school safety issue. And we're lagging behind. And I wanted to talk a little bit about partnerships in this and where everyone fits into that. When we start talking about partnerships, and I had this experience recently as a company, we had this. We talked to a law enforcement agency about our new product, Connect, which connects schools and community organizations, et cetera, et cetera. And they said, this is a great product, but we need the schools to drive this. Okay, if it's a great product, why don't you walk down the block? This is the department that I'm very familiar with and the school district that I worked at. It is literally 2 blocks away from each other.
Wow.
Why doesn't somebody walk out that door and say, hey, we need to sit at a table somewhere and we need to figure this out? Because we as a company, this product it's not really meant for specifically for law enforcement. In fact, it's really not for law enforcement, but that's where it sits.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's in the whole continuum of response and preparedness and all these phases that we've talked about. It sits kind of at that response level because it sits in the 911 dispatch centers, right? Because when something happens, you have to see it. You have to be able, so that's where it sits. So when we call on an agency to say, hey, this is what we want to do, this is what we think you should do, that's where it sits. But if you see the benefit of that, you say, oh, that's great, but we need a school to push this, you kind of missed the boat there, right? It's a community issue. As an law enforcement public safety agency, you need to say, how do I get this done? And you do that by relationships. You go down and you walk down to the school and say, hey, I understand you have Crisis Go, and we think this would be beneficial to us in the response to an incident with you. How do we get that to work? Right. And I'm not absolving the school of any of that responsibility either. Right.
Yeah. They still play a part.
They're a big part of that, especially if the law enforcement agency wants them to be the one driving it. They want to say, yes, this is what we want to do, and this is why we want to do it. Right. So, and this is not unique. It's not a unique situation to me, right? This is where you have someone saying, yeah, I think this is good, but it's really not in my wheelhouse. And then somebody saying, I wish we could do this, but I can't force law enforcement to do it. So again, we have this gap that we've created. And all it takes literally is one and or the other to pick up the phone and say, who's your point of contact if we want to talk to you about school safety? That's the same question for both of those entities.
Yes.
Right? So law enforcement calls the school district and says, hey, who is your point of contact for school safety? The school district says, they call the police department and says, who is your point of contact for school safety? Those two people, once identified, and anyone else they want to bring to the table, should sit down at a table and literally talk. I will tell you, I know this from experience, that in the many, many incidences that I have been involved with at many different levels, literally in the response level and supervision level of patrol people during incidences and managing incidences. If you don't have a prior relationship with those people that you are sitting at the table with during an emergency, you are much less efficient than if you have that relationship established long beforehand.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
For sure.
But that's just human nature, right?
It's a lot better
Go ahead.
It's a lot better to walk into a situation and already know the people you're working with rather than trying to figure out who's who and who's doing what, and like just eliminate, like just figure that all out beforehand, and you're going to make that go by way, way better.
If I walk into a high level meeting in the county that I lived and worked in, even though it's been 8 years, there are going to be people who say, hey, Kelly, how are you? They know who I am. They have an idea of what I have done and so forth. If I try to do that in another county, it doesn't negate all of my experience and what I've done. But the chances of me being able to walk in and having any influence on what is happening is a lot smaller. And if we don't establish those relationships early, and when I say relationships, having them work with you on a regular basis and sitting down and saying, hey, I have this map. My state requires me to have this map. How do you use it? Why do I need it? Right? And what's the best way for me to get you that map? Because the schools in many areas are required to have maps, up-to-date maps. And you would think that that was a very basic request or a requirement. And you think it is, except for when we started seeing that, we started seeing maps that were outdated. They were PDFs. You couldn't do anything with them. Differences in what an area or a room is called versus what they call it every day. So just sitting down at the table to understand something as simple as the map and what's the best way to deliver that map, right?
Like, I wonder, is in schools, I feel like I hear this a lot. Do you think that you'd more likely hear from a school like, oh, this is so-and-so's room as opposed to room 203?
Well, maybe you might.
If they've been there for a long time, they're like, oh, that's, so-and-so's room.
Right.
And then the officer that's never been there, they're going to go, well, where's that?
Yeah, who's that?
Who's that and where is that?
Where's that? Right? Or
yeah.
Or you have a science lab or a computer lab or a gymnasium that's named after somebody, right? That's the Ethan Woodman engineering lab.
Yeah.
Right? Or just the engineering lab.
Yeah.
And you say, what's the room number? Well, I don't know. It's the engineering lab. And you look at the map and there's nothing that indicates that it's the engineering lab.
You just get a number on the map.
You just get a number. Or you get the outdated map where that used to be the band room.
And then it got reconfigured.
And then it got converted to the engineering lab. It's just sitting down and talking about that on a regular basis. And then that first one is that first meeting is a difficult one because nobody knows each other. Maybe they do,
Mm.
but having somebody buy the coffee and the donuts and the pastries and just sitting down and having a conversation, a little bit of an agenda. And I'll tell you, this is a process. I
Mm.
I can't go into and I'll explain this in just a second. I can't go walk into a state agency or a county agency or a fire department or whatever and say, "Hi, I'm Kelly. I'm here to help you." What? They don't have any idea who I am.
Yeah.
If I walked in and I said, "Hi, I'm Kelly. I'm a school safety expert. I just wanted to introduce myself. Maybe maybe have some conversation about that. Maybe figure out how do you play in this?" Like here locally, I live in Southwest Virginia, and most of my experience is on the West Coast. Obviously, I've said that enough, but I can't walk into the local fire department. They have no idea who I am.
Yeah.
I can introduce myself and I can say, "Hey, what's going on?" And it's one of those things that would be completely foreign to me and them because I've worked with volunteer fire departments like once because where I lived and worked, they were predominantly paid professional fire agencies. I heard one stat many, many years ago. I'm assuming it's the same. Maybe it's not. But 80% of our fire departments are volunteer in the United States,
That sounds kind of crazy.
right? You know the story. I happened to be working out at the gym, and some after one of my workouts, a guy, a dude, was looking at my truck.
It's a nice
I live
truck.
in Bird. It's a nice truck.
I mean, it's a
And
Ford. It's a Ford, but it's a nice truck.
it's a nice truck, regardless if that it's a Ford or not. And so we were talking about the truck and my past vehicles and so forth and what because he had a 4-wheel drive Toyota, I think. He had a nice truck too. So we were talking trucks. It was just that introduction, right? So now when we go into the gym, we say hi to each other. And one day, after several, "Hey, how are you doing?" things, I said, "What do you do for a living?"
You kind of
And
got a
he
vibe
goes,
from him, didn't you?
I got a vibe. And but here's the vibe, right? Is he often wears fire department type shirts.
That's a dead giveaway. Come on.
It is, but it's not, right? So I just said, "What do you do around here?" And he said, "Oh, I work for Virginia Department of Fire Programs or something like that." He's in charge of training
Hmm.
programs in Virginia, specifically this area, but he does travel. And I said, "We should talk." "About what?" So I explained to him who I was. I said, "We should go out to lunch." A couple weeks later, we went out to lunch. We had a good conversation. And the conversation was, "Who are you? What do you do? Why do I want to talk to you? Here's why I want to talk to you."
Hmm.
Well, it's funny that you bring that up because it sounds like you have a lot of experience in fires and floods and things like that we're interested in, that we're working on currently to perfect or to standardize. And we have a tabletop exercise. Would you like to come down and observe that? I said, "I'd love to."
That was like Christmas for you.
Right? I said, "I'd love to." And so a week or two later, he had to ask somebody
Sure.
for permission for me to come in. So I got that permission and I sat for a day watching this exercise. It was a tabletop exercise about an earthquake, and which, as most people know, in California, we have a fair amount of experience with earthquakes. But that was the next step in that evolution. Let's see what he knows. Is he full of fluff or what?
Mm.
And so I was an observer. I didn't participate in the drill other than during some of the breaks, they would say, "Well, what do you think?" And I would explain to them what I thought. "Well, that's a good point." Or, "Oh, yeah, we should really consider that." Or, "Yeah, this is what we're doing. Um, and I think we're in the right direction. And I would say, yeah, sure. I'm not trying to influence you. I'm just trying to give you my perspective. And introductions were made. And now people in this area at what I used to do in California now know who I am.
Mm.
Are we going to have more conversations? Yes, we are. There's some familiarity. And when we're talking about emergency response and incident management, it's all about trust and familiarity. I know who Kelly is, and I know what his capabilities are. And I know that when he says this, that's coming from a base of a foundation of experience. It's not just some guy who read a book on emergency management or what have you.
It's funny because the more I think about it, and you're gonna laugh, but it's like when I'm on a soccer team, the way that I interact with all the people on my team on the field differently because of how I understand their skill set and how they think. Like
Right.
once you've played, like I played high school soccer like with the same kids for 4 years. And when you get to that 4th year, like you almost don't even have to like verbally communicate with people anymore. You just know what this person's going to do.
Right.
I can just kick the ball over here and I know this person's going to be there. Because I know they have the speed to get there and yada, yada, yada. So it's...
You know their capabilities.
Yeah.
Their level of being able to accomplish what the goal of the team is. And it's a good analogy because when you're in an incident, you have different players.
Mm.
So you have a team. All of the team members don't do the same thing. They all have an area of discipline. They all have their own responsibilities. They have their own expertise, right? So if you take it to I'm more familiar with the strategies of football. Not that I'm an expert, I'm not. But you have a quarterback, a very specialized position. You have a center. You have linemen. You have defensive players. You have special teams players. All of these have special skills. But when you work together, you listen to sports experts talk about we're playing complementary football. And when they're saying complementary football, they're meaning that everyone is doing their job. I don't just have a high performing offense. I have a defense that is also playing at a high level. And I have special teams that are doing their job. They're getting me good positions, field position after a punt. They're blocking field goals. They're tackling whomever they're supposed to tackle, right? So when you talk about the special teams and you talk about it's that relationship. And here's why continuity in professional sports and higher level sports and what you experienced even at the high school level, why they work so well is because people already have an understanding of what it takes to get something done. And if you're in an area and you get a transfer student, unless they're moving from completely the other side of the state or the country, you probably have a pretty good idea or you've heard about that person before. And regardless, if I walk in and I'm new to the team, I walk into the team room and somebody says, "Well, who are you?" I say, "I'm Kelly." "Well, what's your position? Where do you play?" "I'm a forward. I'm a defenseman." And right now they have an idea of what my capabilities should be. And then we go out to play soccer or football, whatever you want to use, whatever analogy works best. Then we go out and everyone on that field is evaluating whether or not I can do what I said I can do.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And even at the professional level, there have been times that it's occurred. But even at the professional level, you don't draft a guy and put him out on the field with zero practice, zero interaction, zero anything before you understand what their capabilities are and how they fit on your team. And you chose them to be there because you already have this notion or this preconceived idea of how they fit into your team, but you haven't proved it yet. Now you need to see how they work with the team. And we're at the time of the Winter Olympics now. And if you think about the history of hockey in the United States, you can't do that without thinking about the 1980 Olympics. And the coach of that team, Herb, I forget his last name, but Herb
Chambers.
What's that?
I don't remember what his last name was.
Yeah, I don't remember. But you have Herb, and he's trying to pick his team, and he's having all these people try out, and some very good people with skills were passed up, and people were like screaming, "What are you doing? This is the best goalie in the nation. This is the best forward, or this is the best defenseman, or what have you, the best center." And he said, "I'm not looking for the best player. I'm looking for the best team. I'm looking to make the best team, and the results speak for themselves. Where do you fit in? How do you fit in? Can you get along with people?" Right? And that's a process that takes time. And you don't want to go through that and just say, "Okay, today's game day. Hi, I'm Kelly. Hi, I'm Ethan. Hi, I'm Carrie," or whatever. It doesn't work very well. But that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing today. We've done just recently, we've done some podcasts into why and how we're getting it wrong. And I'm in the process of trying to examine that a little bit. So, and these new relationships that I have in Southwest Virginia are going to help me with that. But I have to work through it. It's not something that you can just say, "Okay, this is what we're doing." You got to sit down at a table with somebody. You got to understand how you're going to interact, what their capabilities are, and so forth. So when you start, it's easy for me to say, which is really difficult to say, is you need to get these relationships going. It is as simple as, you know what? I don't have a good relationship with my law enforcement. I don't know who is responsible for this. Making a phone call to the police department and say, "Hey, I'm so and so from the school district. Who is the point of contact for school safety in your school?" They will give you a name. Say, "Okay, I'm Kelly with the school district. How do I get a hold of him and set up a meeting with him?" It's likely going to be, "Let me transfer you to his voicemail," or "Here's his email," and try to get a hold of him. If that doesn't work, one day say, "I'm here to speak with Commander Moore. I'm so and so from the school district, and I'm the one who's responsible for school safety, and I just want to start a conversation." It will get done. You might have to be a little persistent on it, but it'll get done.
Yeah.
And you have to bridge the gap. I can help bridge that gap because it literally is making a couple of phone calls. "Hey, I'm calling for this school district and want to get a point of contact for them," and calling the school district and say, if you have somebody who needs to sit down with law enforcement and the fire department and so forth, who is that? It's that simple. Then we can start moving forward with this, and we can start looking at addressing this as a community, and not just as a school, not just as law enforcement, and not trying to figure out what's going to happen when something bad happens while it's happening. As they say, "I'm trying to fly a plane while you guys are still putting it together." It doesn't work.
No.
So, I mean, it'll eventually resolve itself. Almost everyone you talk to says seconds matter. You don't want to spend those seconds saying, "Hi, I'm Kelly."
Yeah.
Right? You want to say, "Kelly, I need you to do this." As soon as I walk through the door, or I'm on the radio, or I'm on the phone, "Hey, Commander, we need you to do this." I just can't emphasize enough. Relationships, relationships, relationships. And it's incumbent upon everyone who doesn't have a good relationship to identify that as a gap in your safety, whether it's the safety of the community or your school or your organization. I have a gap. Who fills that gap? And then you can start talking about all the ancillary relationships you have to have. Public works, hospitals, mental health professionals, all of those other people. At some point, you're going to get them all at the table and say, if this happens, how are we doing that? And that's your first tabletop exercise.
There you go.
Right? You need to do it. If you need help with that, give me a call.
He'll
Shoot
answer.
me an email.
He'll
And
do
I will help you work through that. It's too important not to have.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And if you have any questions about what we discussed, leave a comment on our website at crisisgo.com. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next time on Coffee with Kelly, a discussion on school safety.